guys, it's Caroline from Coral Talks. Welcome back to another episode. Happy New Year, happy almost Lunar New Year, and I hope you guys had a nice holiday season because it's been a while since I've last came up here and recorded and published an episode. Whether you guys went on vacation or stayed at home with family, hope you guys enjoyed yourselves and had a nice transition from 2024 to 2025. I'm recording this after the wildfires happened, so I just wanted to take a moment and to acknowledge the wildfires. And I mean, it's very devastating and very sad to see so many people's homes and communities destroyed. But seeing so much people come together, not just in my school's community, but throughout California, throughout Los Angeles, is a very beautiful thing, and it makes me have hope and optimism for the future. I know that I'm in no place to really say that because it didn't affect me as severely as it did with other people, but to some extent, everyone has been affected by these wildfires, and I just wanted to let you guys know that my heart and I'm sending out love to you guys, loves and hugs and prayers. I hope that if you're listening and you're in Los Angeles, that this brings you some distraction or some routine. Well, let's get started. I have a joke that's for the New Year's. It's a little bit late because I've delayed my episode, but it doesn't hurt to do a New Year's joke and manifest for a good rest of our 11 months. So why did the man sprinkle sugar on his pillow before bed on New Year's Eve? Well, it's because he wanted to start the new year with sweet dreams. You know, you gotta manifest, think about it, and it'll happen because it's all in the mindset. So I don't know about you guys, but I always have kept my New Year's resolutions written on a piece of paper, somewhere in my drawers. I've never been able to keep up with it for more than a good 3 months. It happens every year, but regardless, I'm still gonna start the New Year's with hopes and dreams about my resolutions, and honestly, this year I am going to make an effort to do these because they mean something. So, 3 of my resolutions are to exercise for at least 15 minutes every 2 days, and then to be less on my phone because I'm wasting way too much time on my phone. It's not a joke. And finally, better communication skills myself, being more aware of myself and with the people around me, having meaningful conversations and communication. I'm gonna try and keep up with these resolutions. So if you guys have any resolutions, it's hard to keep up with them, but I like at least just do small steps at a time because small steps at a time usually make it a little bit less daunting, so it's more manageable. Like me exercising for 15 minutes every 2 days is like 7.5 minutes every day, and I think I'm going to try to make that happen. I'm going to continue with my gratefulness spotlights from last year because I really liked how this is an outlet for me to reflect and be grateful about stuff in my life. So, number 1 is I'm grateful for being able to travel, especially after New Year's, after the holiday season. I've been reflecting. And number 2 is being able to see pretty lights. I was gonna say Christmas lights, but honestly, any lights at this point, whether it be Christmas lights or lights in a house or, some water show lights or just lights on a building. Honestly, just lights in general because I feel like it mesmerizes at some degree. And third thing I'm grateful about is to being able to sleep. I don't have a very nice sleep schedule. I don't even have a schedule at this point. It's just a freestyle. I sleep when I'm tired. Sometimes I sleep late, sometimes I sleep really early. It just depends how I feel. But I'm really grateful that I get to sleep when I want to sleep. Unlike other people who have insomnia or who have trouble sleeping or who don't have time to sleep because they have work or they have too much schooling. So, yeah. Holidays this week. I missed a lot of holidays. I was going to start fresh, brand new from January 1st, but that didn't happen, and it is January 14th. So, I am not going to start from the New Year's, but just some shout outs for interesting days that I see here. There is, on January 5th, it was Bird Day. It was Whipped Cream Day, and it was Bird Day. So that reminded me of a guest that was on the podcast a few episodes ago, our conversation about birds. So that made me think of him. And another holiday I wanted to point out is January 6th was Cuddle Day, National Cuddle Day. And coming from me, as a person who absolutely love hugs, like hugs itself is my love language, a hug could do wonders for me. I just have to say, if you are a hugger, go hug your friend. You can make their day. Or if you like hugs yourself, get a hug from somebody. It could make your day. Another day I wanted to point out is January 8th is Bubble Bath Day. I just thought we all needed some reminders of self-care, especially in devastating times like this. Self-care can come in different ways, and it's important to do that. And finally, another day to point out that's in the past is January 11th, Human Trafficking Awareness Day. Human trafficking is still a thing, and it's not just something you see on TV or on movies. It happens constantly in where we live in the United States and many other countries for all different types of reasons. For sex trafficking, child trafficking, for money, labor, all different kinds of reasons, and it is very important that we raise awareness about it. But getting back to holidays this week, starting from Monday of this week, we have National Sticker Day. Now, it was Monday, January 13th. Personally, I love a good sticker. The satisfaction of peeling a sticker is awesome. Rubber Ducky Day is also on Monday, January 13th. When I was a wee little baby, I used to love rubber duckies, and I would squeeze water in the hole underneath it, and it would always be slimy and moldy at the end, so I don't think that was a very good idea of me. Monday is also National Clean Off Your Desk Day. So I know for us at least, school has not started, but clean your desk, whether it's full of homework from last year or just scratch paper or dirty dishes, trash. Clean it off. Let's start on a brand new slate, because environment can also affect your, mood and just your work motivation. January 14th is National Dress Up Your Pet Day. I've always thought of pet dressing up to be weird, but also cool. So I don't have much of a say on that because I don't even have a pet myself. You do you with your pet, as long as your pet feels comfortable. January 15th, Wednesday, was National Bagel Day. Here's to all the bagel lovers, because I am a bagel lover. My favorite bagel is an everything bagel, because the saltiness to it, the savoriness to it, mixed with cream cheese is the best thing ever. January 15th is also Strawberry Ice Cream Day. Fun fact, I actually just had a cup of ice cream before I started recording this, and I had vanilla flavor. It was really delicious. I just wanted to say that there's crazy flavors of ice cream nowadays in the markets. Bizarre ones. I can't think of it right now. There's bizarre ones. There's chocolate, pieces in it. Pieces in it. For me, I just like a classic. Good vanilla plain rich ice cream. A good chocolate plain ice cream. Or a good strawberry ice cream. We're almost there. January 16th is National Religious Freedom Day. It's also National Nothing Day. I remember when I was a middle schooler, I would joke with my friends and be like, Today is opposite day. Today is do nothing day. And we just play around like that. Moving on, January 17th, which is a Friday, is National Classy Day. So I guess dress yourself up in what you feel comfortable with, what makes you feel good about yourself. Put on some makeup and live like an hour, forgetting about all your worries. Saturday, January 18th, is National Peking Duck Day. As an Asian, as a Taiwanese person, I love Peking duck. It's delicious. You have to try it if you have not tried it. It's absolutely delicious. It is also Winnie the Pooh Day. I actually just stumbled upon the trailer for Winnie the Pooh, the realistic version of it, and I want to watch it. Winnie the Pooh is the vibe. January 19th, Sunday, is National Imagination Day. Hashtag imagination. We love a good imagination. And with imagination leads to creation of movies, shows. So that means that it is also National Popcorn Day, because a good show, a good movie, calls for a good popcorn. Buttered popcorn. Alright, we are done with the national holidays up until now for January. Moving on to featured species. So featured species is one of the deepest living fish? Question mark? So far, it has scientists have discovered and named it as one of the deepest living fishes. It was collected in the Puerto Rico Trench at a whopping 27,555 feet. Its scientific name is the Abyssbrotula galathea. It is a species of cusk eels, also known as bony fish, that have the appearance of an eel. Even though their names contain the word eel, cusk eel, they are not actually eels. They look like an eel because they're very bony and they're a snake-like. They have been discovered to be 6 inches max, so they're pretty tiny. They're just small, bony, skinny fish. If you're gonna close your eyes, time for imagination. How it looks. It has a short, stubby head that's always downward. It's pointed downward, and it has a very swollen nose snot area. It has very small eyes and a poorly developed spine. Its spine is basically arched. Imagine a 6-inch fish with a spine arched is honestly interesting, to say the least. Like I said earlier, it was collected in the Puerto Rico Trench, very deeply in the bathypelagic layer. If you don't know what I'm talking about, I did a short episode on ocean layers, so go refer back to that if you would like to know the ocean layers, or just Google it if you don't want to listen to me yap. This species of fish is found in tropical waters, warmer areas. Now you may be wondering how scientists even figured this out. How do they know that there's this species called Abyssbrotula galathea living in the ocean at 27,000 feet below? No human is able to travel that far and watch and identify the fish. Well, scientists use a new device creation called the Abyss Box that is used to bring up and capture deep sea creatures with a camera for research and observance. So there's two purposes of the Abyss Box. One is to capture the surroundings of the deep sea with a integrated camera, and the other is to bring up a specific species for research. You might know that the pressure is different for deep sea to ocean surface, and the process of going from deep sea to ocean surface, there's a big pressure change. Many animals, including us, aren't able to survive that pressure change because certain animals sometimes only live in certain pressure points. Now, the Abyss Box is very, very useful in the sense because it keeps the pressure at where the animal thrives best. So, say if it was grabbing an animal at 27,000 feet, the pressure in that environment would be contained as the box makes its way up to the ocean surface, instead of allowing the animal and the box environment to reach minimal pressure. This pressure maintaining feature allows more species to be brought up to the surface to be researched and allows more knowledge for the deep sea. Moving on to the positive ocean news. At this point, we all need some positive news. Crab shells are being used as the new batteries. Researchers are finding ways to upcycle these shells that we devour, or the crab shells that land up in the beaches. Because as humans, we consume a lot of crab, and all of those shells currently are going to waste. But scientists are trying to turn those shell materials into something called crab carbon. That crab carbon can be used for things like batteries. Before I go into crab carbon more, let me explain what crab shells are made out of. They're made from a material called chitin, which can be heated up to super high temperatures, about 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit. So when the materials are heated, it creates a porous carbon-filled material. And there you go, that's your crab carbon. Back to how crab carbon can be used in the terms of batteries. First of all, the batteries that we know are made out of lithium. Sodium, another element, is much more abundant as a raw material, and it could be possibly a great alternative. The only catch is that sodium ions are larger than lithium ions, so the usual battery materials that would mix with lithium to create functioning batteries won't really work. This is where the crab carbon comes in hand. The crab carbon's porous structure makes it really great to transport these larger sodium ions efficiently. Researchers were able to make a model battery out of the crab carbon along with the sodium ions into a battery, but they tested it to last for 200 cycles. That is something, although it's not as strong as our computer battery or our iPhone battery, but it is something that is going in the right direction. Recycling, upcycling, and using raw materials that are abundant to make materials that we use constantly, like batteries. Alright, moving on to the second section of this episode. Today I'm going to go full out weather geek. As you may be expecting from the title, global weather phenomenons, I'm going to be talking about weather stuff. It's a little bit of a detour than, ocean, marine life stuff, but I feel like weather is really closely related to the ocean because, once again, everything is connected. Nothing goes to waste. So, the ocean technically is connected to weather, and obviously the weather is connected to us. Alright, so there are a few things I want to talk about, starting locally. Okay, I'm going to put you in a machine and we're going to travel around the world. First, I'm going to go to Northern California, San Francisco, and then we're going to talk about Italy. So starting in San Francisco, for those of you who've ever been to San Francisco, have you guys seen the fog, the immense fog that just seems really gloomy and heavy and dense around the Golden Gate Bridge? I love how I'm talking to you guys as if there's another audience in real time that's going to respond to me, but in reality I'm talking to myself. I would love if there would be a response, so it wouldn't be as soul-crushing. But anyway, when I was little and we visited San Francisco for vacation, I thought it was pollution. I was like, wow, the pollution is so crazy. It's worse than LA. It's so gloomy, depressing. How would one even live in San Francisco? But turns out it is not fully pollution. I mean, pollution is a factor, but geographical and atmospheric factors are actually the two main factors for foggy San Francisco. San Francisco is a coast city, so it's next to the ocean, it has a few piers that, combined with the way that San Francisco is built, the land-wise, is what causes the extreme fog. So let me break it down. San Francisco is located, the ocean that connects with San Francisco is the Pacific Ocean. Pacific Ocean brings cold, moist ocean air. Why is that? Because of the California current. The Pacific Ocean contains the California Current, which is also known as a EBC, an eastbound current. I'm going to go a little bit into currents. Eastbound current, the California Current, the eastbound current, flows along the east side of the Earth's oceans, which includes the Pacific Ocean. It moves the water towards the equator, and the movement of the water causes the current to carry strong upwellings, which just means cold, dense, nutrient-filled waters that comes from below, that comes from the deeper waters, coming up to the warmer surface water. I talked about different kinds of currents and how they're all connected, how currents work together in a cycle a few episodes back. If you just search the title of my episodes, you'll see that one of them is about currents. And I do talk about water moving to the equator and away from the equator and what the difference is. So if you want to go back to that, please do and understand more about that. But basically, I explained to make a flashback for both you and me. I explained how some currents bring deeper, colder waters to the surface, and that goes to the equator, while others bring surface, warmer water away from the equator. Now, these different current movements determine the coldness and the warmness that we would describe in waters when we're in it or when we feel it. Now that we've talked a little bit about the California current, let's put that aside. That is one of the factors that causes the extreme fog. The other factor I was talking about earlier was how San Francisco is land-wise. So San Francisco is made out of many hills. It has famous, like swervy streets, hills, and like just hills on hills on hills. And it is positioned on a very narrow peninsula. What is a peninsula? Because I did not know either. A peninsula is just an area of land that's surrounded by water. Why make it so hard and say peninsula when you could literally say it is a land that has water next to it? But anyway, the land of San Francisco is very narrow and it is surrounded by water. If you Google map the area of San Francisco, the San Francisco Bay is on one side and the Pacific Ocean is on the other. So the San Francisco Bay brings out warmer water, brings out warmer air compared to the Pacific Ocean. Now, the Pacific Ocean brings cold air because of the California current. Now, the mixture of the warm air from the San Francisco Bay and the cold air from the Pacific Ocean makes what is called an advocation fog. This is when fog is formed by the horizontal movement and mixture of cold, moist, and warm air. Why does fog happen when cold, moist air mixes with warm air? The cold air is moist, and when it reaches the warm air, it cools the warm air and creates water vapor that condenses into tiny, tiny, tiny droplets of water because it's trying to make the warmer air cooler. So this process of the tiny, tiny, tiny water droplets that are created is what we see as fog. And boom, that's how fog is made. Adding San Francisco has many hills and slopes pushes the cold air more up towards the sky, which makes the cold, moist air even colder. A mixture of colder and moister air with the warmer water just makes more creation of the tiny, tiny, tiny water droplets that I was mentioning. The more of the tiny water droplets that are formed, the more and heavier, denser fog that we see in daily life. That's what makes the San Francisco fog. The California current, how San Francisco is a narrow peninsula that's surrounded by San Francisco Bay on one side and the Pacific Ocean on the other, and how the slopes and hills make the cold air even colder because it's more up there, and the mixture between the cold and warm air finally creates the fog. Now that we've traveled to North Cali, let's head on back to our imaginary cars, my imaginary world traveling machine, and that is let's go around the world, go to Italy. Listen to me talk about a very interesting phenomenon, if you will, that was witnessed during one of the hottest months of summertime in Italy. In parts of northern Italy in 2022, big chunks of ice and water flooded down the streets. It might be normal during winter months, logically, but what made it interesting was that this happened during the hottest month of the year. They were in a heat wave. They were dying of heat. Unless it was a snowy mountain, one of Italy's snowiest mountains, deciding to be angry and create an avalanche, what other reason would there be that this phenomenon happened? It had to do with the mixtures of different airs again. Honestly, I'm feeling like the weather stuff is a lot of mixing air and combinations of what we can't see in our environment, so that's pretty cool. It's like a reoccurring fact that I've noticed while trying to figure out what I'm gonna say to you guys in my episodes. Okay, going back to what I was saying, this phenomenon happened because of the mixture of different airs again. The extreme heat, the heat wave, created extreme heat and hot air. And that hot air was mixed with moist and warm air from the Mediterranean Sea, because the Mediterranean Sea is warmer. Adding a third factor, those two things were also mixed with the cold air from their polar regions in the icy Alps and the Appalachian Mountains. So there are three factors in what caused this phenomenon. The extreme heat is one. Number two is the moist and warm air from the Mediterranean Sea. And number three is the polar regions from the icy Alps and the mountains. When two extremely different air masses and qualities mix together, it creates an instability in the air, and that makes clouds and thunderstorms prone to form because of the water vapor that is made in the mixture of air. Instead of fog, the immense variation in air masses and in air qualities causes water vapor to form, and that water vapor causes thunderstorms. Thunderstorms can then lead to large hailstones to form, which then the hail group together and form blocks and pieces of ice that fall to the floor and flood the streets. Okay, let's back up. How do thunderstorms create hailstorms? So, not all thunderstorms make hail. That is something that I learned. I didn't even know that thunderstorms made hail. But I learned that specific thunderstorms make hail, and those are called hail-making thunderstorms. Those thunderstorms work like a cycle. Let's imagine this. It's a circle. One side of the circle is going up. Warm air is carried up into the colder atmosphere of the storm up here. Carrying up warm air is called an updraft. Now, once the warm air is carried up into the atmosphere up there, into the thunderstorm, hail is being produced with the warm updrafts in the colder and higher atmospheres. Again, because of the mixture of hot and cold air, water vapor forms, and it creates this little hail embryo that then huddle together and creates larger blocks of hail and ice. As those hailstones get larger and are made, they come down in the other side of the cycle, along with the cold drafts and the water of the thunderstorm. So one side is the hot air going up, and then the top is like the factory where all the hail is made, and then the other side of the circle is the hail and cold drafts floating down to land. That is how hail storms are created from thunderstorms. Going back to the ice flood in Italy, there was a thunderstorm because of extreme heat and cold air from the mountains, again with the instability of air, and because of the extreme heat, the large blocks of hail that looked like ice chunks formed in the thunderstorm and flowed down the streets. The hotter the updrafts are that go up into the atmosphere, the larger the hailstones are that form, because the larger amount of water vapor is formed in the atmosphere. It is because of those factors, and uh, the honestly, it was because of the immense heat that ultimately caused such a big ice flood that flowed down. So yeah, no icy mountain avalanches, just some hailstorms. Not that intriguing, but at first glance at something that happened in Italy, it's pretty interesting. Just seeing like ice blocks floating down. If you have time, or if you are motivated to do so, I mean, definitely Google it because it's cool. It's something shocking and interesting to see a video of. Okay. I have one final thing to talk about Italy. Venice, one of the most popular places of Italy. When you think of Italy, you think of Venice. Venice is one of the most popular touristic, romantic vibe set places that majority of people know about. But there's a problem because Venice is said to be sinking, and I've always wondered why that is. When I was little, I thought it was because of the population. Like, is the population too much? Can people just move away? But no. Let me yap. Venice is built on water, basically. Specifically wet, marshy wetlands. Wetlands aren't very stable. It's mushy. It doesn't have solid, stable base for you to be building all those tall and heavy buildings that you would see in Venice now. For reference, Venice has a lot of churches, ancient buildings, lighthouses, and structures that could fit hundreds of people, and markets that could hold hundreds of people. It is built to sustain a lot of people. So, obviously, that amount of structure is not going to last on a wetland. Now, you may be wondering how they actually built it on a wetland. Well, the people back then used hard clay and mud. Now, the hard clay is in the very bottom layer of the entire base. Then they put mud, which is tightly stacked with wooden poles. Tightly stacking allows the mud to harden and the hard clay to also harden, making the structure a little bit stronger. On top of the wood poles, planks of wood were put on, and then limestone was set on top of the planks to secure it more. After that, they start building infrastructure. Now that we know how Venice is built, there are a few factors that are contributing to the sinking of Venice. One being subsidence. Now, as I just explained what Venice's infrastructures are built on, you might be able to tell that the structure is not very strong, even though it is. It's lasted a long time already. It is evident that it's gonna have to, every year, it sinks by a few millimeters because of the structure, the hard clay, the mud, eventually wearing down. Think about it. Heavy buildings are weighing on top of clay and mud and wood. It's eventually gonna deteriorate year by year. A second contributing factor is a weather phenomenon, a current phenomenon called the aqua alta, also known in English as the high water. It is just, although the fancy name, a combination of tides, movement of seawater, and a strong, strong wind. Because of climate change and warming weathers and rising sea water, which that I will talk about in the next few episodes that I have planned. Because of those climate change factors, this phenomenon, high water, high tides, is happening more frequently. These high tides flow into and flood the city of Venice, and it makes it very hard for residents there to function as a society, as a community there when high water phenomenon is happening. First floors are basically non-livable. Things get destroyed. I mean, tourists can't be there either. People have to be walking like waist deep in water. So it is a problem, and an effect that these high water phenomenons have on the overall life span of Venice is that they are decaying foundations. The more the water flows and floods Venice, the more decay that is happening to the foundation, to the hard clay, and to the wooden planks because of just imagine salt water sinking into every nook and cranny of Venice constantly. A third factor is cruise ships that arrive to Venice's port causes vibrations underneath the water that damage the hard clay and the foundation of the building and the cities. Finally, like I mentioned earlier, the rising of seawater causes the phenomenon high water, but it also, in general, just causes rising seawater, and it's going to overflow Venice at one point. I will talk about seawater raising next time, so we'll leave it at that. But you may be wondering, is there a way to save Venice? And that's something that I've wondered too, because I haven't been able to travel there. I know there are people who do want to travel there and who just haven't gotten the opportunity to. Most importantly, there are also people who Venice is a home to them, and their whole lives have been on Venice, been in Italy, their memories and life has been on Venice, and it's sad to see that year by year and every knowing that there is an end in the future, and that every day is a day closer to their entire town and community being destroyed. So, is there a way to save Venice? There's some theories, but they're also like a legit project that researchers, politicians, they've been doing. It's called the Moses Project, and scientists have measured where like the high tides come in, where like seawater raises. So they built like barriers that is located in the ocean, and the barriers are supposed to rise up. They're just basically like a gate. Like imagine a gate. When high tides are said to be coming, or seawater is rising, the gates are supposed to open and block the seawater from coming through and entering the vicinity of Venice. The problem is that this project has said to start construction ever since 2009. It was approved for construction in 2009, and they recently built like some of them and put it to the test, but it is not complete. There's still like there's more barriers to be built in the water. It's taken more than 10 years and it hasn't been done, and time is ticking. I don't have anything I can say about it. It's just concerning. I've researched and people are saying that it's taking a long time. That's the only legit solution that Italy has put into action so far. I was talking about theories earlier. One of the theories that people say could potentially save Venice is pumping water underneath the sediment to hard the clay again and raise the foundation. Like how I was saying, the bottom is filled with hard clay, mud, wooden poles. People are saying that if you pump water underneath the hard clay, it's gonna overall rise the foundation of the hard clay and everything above it. They're going to put some solution in the water, and it's also going to harden the hard clay again, which makes the foundation stabler. So that's a theory. Hopefully that's something that they're going to consider and they're going to maybe try doing. I'm really hopeful for them, because especially with the wildfires recently in California, God bless, it did not affect the entire LA. Like downtown LA, there are certain parts of LA that has not been affected. God bless that. But having this experience of wildfires and things that destroyed our communities makes me more heartbroken and heartfelt and, feel more for Venice. I mean, for us, these wildfires happened within the matter of like seconds. Like it was a few hours. But for Venice, it's been said for years. From 10 years ago wasn't as grand of an issue, but now it's a pretty big issue because it's been a decade already. Climate change is there and it's affecting the ocean, and it's gonna happen one day or another, and to have that feeling of doom upon the people of Venice is really scary and very depressing, honestly. So, I really hope that they figure something out and keep Venice alive, because it would be devastating to see Venice be destroyed. Because just like us, just like any other place, they're also a community. They have their own culture, families, friends, businesses, they have much more of a connection than we ever know that they do. I think it's important for them to get a grip on it and like actually work on it. But yeah, that's all I have to say for this episode. That's all I have to yap about. It's a lot of air mixture, water currents this episode. And just to recap, obviously started off with the day of the jokes, positive news, for crab shells and featured species of a deepest fish, cusk eel of the ocean. And then I went on to talk about the San Francisco fog, and then Italy's weird ice flood phenomenon in the middle of the summer. And finally, I ended up with talking about Venice sinking. Thank you guys for listening to today's episode. It's been a while. I'm very happy to get back on it. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Love you guys a lot, and I hope you stay safe and take care of yourselves. And I'll see you next week. Love you. Bye.